Well, g'day folks. So, get out of the wind. My boat engine won't start, which is a little bit weird. It's always started really easy. Now I'm thinking that I flooded it. I used the boat last night, and as always, the engine ran faultlessly. It always starts, once it's warm, it always starts first turn of the key. When it's cold, it might take 2 or 3 turns of the key. But this morning, I got home last night and I didn't wash the engine, so I thought I'd do it this morning so I didn't upset the neighbours. So I've just tried to start it and it won't start. So I got a bit of a video here that I sent my friend to ask him some advice. I am thinking I flooded it. It's a 2-stroke engine. Because I pulled the throttle control way up, kind of not paying attention to what I was doing, pulled the throttle control way up, the throttle control, not the controls forward and back, the rev lever, pulled it up fully, pushed the choke in, tried to start it. It usually starts still, but either way, it wouldn't start. I tried for about 10 minutes, sent my friend a message, and waiting to hear back. So I'm just leaving it for an hour or so. I remember back in the olden days, and I have very little engine knowledge. I'm learning as I go. But when you used to flood the 2-stroke lawnmower or the whippersnapper or something like that, from too much choke, or anyway, we just left it for a little while and then tried again later. So I'm going to do that. I did a couple of videos. I'll post those here on what I sent to my friend, because oil's leaking out of it onto the ground, but not out of some vents. So that might be perfectly normal. But I'll wait and hear back and see if I can start it later and then give you all an update. So it's a 2-stroke Mercury 2005 model, so it's pretty old, but it runs magnificently. So this is very unusual for it, but I'll get back to you in a little bit. Any thoughts on this? I went out fishing yesterday, had no problem with the engine at all. Now I've come in, I left it overnight and I'm about to start it and flush it, and it won't start. It just keeps turning over and over. It's got plenty of fuel, but it sounds like it's not getting any fuel. Maybe I flooded it, I don't know, but now there's oil leaking out of this little hole, but that could be because it's not starting. It could be because I flooded it, but it's dripping down onto the wood here. So any thoughts on that? So I left it for about 5 minutes and tried to start it again. I cleaned up all the oil, I washed it off, but the moment I tried to start it, it's leaking oil again. So maybe it's just got too much oil because I too much choked it or something, but that's my story still. So my engine started, and I don't know why it started, which is concerning because I don't know why it stopped. So let me just show you this. So I was talking to one of my friends about could I have possibly flooded it, and he said it's not that easy to do with a 2-stroke. So I really have no mechanical knowledge at all, very, very basic. But I tell you what I possibly did wrong. So when the engine wouldn't start, before it wouldn't start, I came in the boat to flush the engine out. I usually have this and I squeeze it until it's very tight. Very, very tight. That's the fuel, the little fuel bulb to suck the fuel up. Apparently I shouldn't squeeze it until it's very, very tight, because it forces too much fuel into the carburetors and it can flood it. So I always squeeze that until it's very tight. First mistake. Then what I did is I came over here to the controls. And I wasn't really paying too much attention when I did it. So the choke, you push the key in, push key to choke, push the key in. So I didn't do that. I was just kind of not paying attention, and I gave it full throttle, so full revs open. So possibly too much fuel squeezing, too much throttle may have flooded it, but it wouldn't start, as you can see in the other videos. Then I did some googling on the internet, and I checked the two other things it could be. So I pulled out the on-off switch. There's a little flip switch in there that when you pull this cord, it turns the engine off. That's a safety cord that you're supposed to clip to yourself. The other thing I did was put it in forward and put it in reverse and shake it in the middle, because the engine shouldn't start if it's in gear. But I don't know if it's in gear, whether you turn the key and you just get silence, or you turn the key and it tries to start but won't start. But anyway, I did those two things and then turned the key a bunch of times, and it sounded different, sounded like it wanted to start. So I kept repeating that for not long, but maybe for a minute. Just turn the key, and then I wouldn't hold the key on and let it start. Just turn the key, let it go, turn the key, let it go, and eventually it started. So and then I turned it off and I started it again, and it works fine because it runs beautifully, usually beautifully. Anyway, I'm going to try and start it again. It's the next day, and just hopefully it starts, because it still doesn't really explain why it didn't start. So maybe it's got something to do with the controls, maybe it's got something to do with the kill switch, maybe it's because I just gave it too much throttle and too much fuel pump and flooded it. So we'll try now and see whether it starts. Fingers crossed. Got to turn the hose water on. So the battery's on. One pump, no throttle, and maybe no choke. I'll just see how it sounds. See, that's not right. That's exactly what it was doing when it wasn't starting. I don't know. I don't know. I've tried everything that I tried the other day, which is not much. It's got fuel. Maybe I shouldn't have pumped that little ball at all. It won't. The key won't even turn and make a starting sound when it's in gear. So clearly it's not that. I tried the on-off switch again. Well, I'm gonna have to leave it. It's booked in for a service Tuesday, but I was going to go out this afternoon and try and get some sweet. It's only done, let me check. It's done 28 hours since its last service. I didn't use it much last year. I don't know. I'll get back to you after the service and see what they say. So, I'm back from my trip to the Outboard mechanic. There and back. Got my boat serviced. And they found nothing wrong with the engine. They couldn't explain why it wouldn't start, because it started for them the moment they started looking at it. So they said it's all fine, and they just put it down to the fact that I'd flooded it when I tried to start it, which is possible but strange, because I've started it 100 times in the previously and it always started. So I am slightly concerned. Now, they did show me, I asked the mechanic on the phone, and then I asked a different mechanic when I arrived, and then I spoke to a different mechanic when I picked it up, and they all gave me slightly different stories or slightly different instructions, so I'm not quite sure which instructions to follow. My question was, if I flooded it, how do you flood it to realise or to understand whether I was flooding it? And then I asked a different guy, well, if I was to flood it, what would I have to do? So I know not to do that. And kind of got 2 or 3 different answers, so I'm just not sure. But what one said, don't pump this bulb too much because it forces fuel in through the injectors or something that I don't remember, and that can flood it. The other guy said, well, no, you can pump that won't flood it. Then another guy said, here, with the choke, don't use the choke more than once. Okay, well, okay. The other guy said, if you pump the throttle too much, you can flood it. The other guy said, well, you can't flood it by just pumping the throttle too much. So I'm not sure, but all I know is I had no real instructions when I bought the boat, and what I was doing was possibly using the choke too much, possibly pumping the throttle too much, because I definitely was doing all that. However, it always started for me, so I wasn't doing anything different. However, I will try and start my new starting technique, try and be a little bit more fluent with my starting technique. Not as much choke, not as much throttle. But I also said to them, two different guys, and they didn't really give me an answer that was overly helpful. But I said, what happens if it happens out to sea? If it just won't start, or if I flood it out to sea, what do I do then? How do I, I live in a pretty remote location, and it's not very easy for someone to come and get me if I need to. It's certainly not a on-the-spot thing that someone will come out and help. It'll take hours and hours if I can get reception. One guy said, you can take the spark plugs out. And I said, what, out in the ocean? Not real keen on that. He said, take the spark plugs out and dry them. I don't want to do that. I don't really know how to do that, especially out in the ocean. You get salt water in your engine, or I drop one, or I drop my spanner or something. The other one said, just wait a while and try again later. And I said, well, how long do I wait? He said, half an hour, maybe a bit longer. And I'm thinking, that's quite stressful if I'm out to sea or along the coast and I flood it again. Anyway, he said it shouldn't really happen. They're all pretty good. The mechanics were good. But of course I'm asking them questions about something that they're not really sure what the problem is, because it was starting for them. But they said, look, once it's started and you've been using it for the day, it shouldn't happen again. If you're going to flood it, it'll only be when you first start it, first thing in the morning. So anyway, that's the story. So it's fully serviced, it's back home, and I'm waiting for the next flat day. But I am quietly, or not quietly, worried about it, because I don't want to go out to sea and it not start. That would be a big problem. But it has run beautifully up until the non-starting episode. So fingers crossed, I just have to carry on. But it's fully serviced, it's good for another 100 hours or 12 months. And yeah, I'll just carry on as I am carrying on. And yeah, so that's the story of my engine not starting and now starting. Alright, see you in the next video. One other thing, just in case you're curious, it is a 2005 model Mercury 50 horsepower 2-stroke. So with unknown hours. I bought it with no hour meter on it, but I put one on when I bought it, and I've done 28 hours since I've had it. So that's that, in case you're wondering. Alright, see you next time.